Hey, so this video is going to be about me making a little Jarrarium. This is my main aquarium tank. This is a 10-gallon planted tank that I've had for a few months now, and it is home to some Neocaridina shrimp as well as a few bladder snails who probably hitchhiked in on one of the live plants. Anyway, this is out in my front room, and that's a great place for this tank, but I would also like to have a little piece of the aquarium in my bedroom basically, and that's where this jar comes in. This is a pickle jar. Looks like there's a little scuff on it there. I'll give it one more rinse to make sure it's totally clean. But basically I'm going to put some aquatic plants in this little jar, not any shrimp, but once the plants are established I'll see if maybe I can keep a couple of the snails in here too. So since I'm going to be doing a planted little jar, I'm going to use some of this Fluval Stratum, which is apparently good for aquatic plants. I have not used it yet. You might have noticed that my planted tank is just a gravel bottom and I'm using liquid fertilizer in it. But for this little jar, I want to experiment with this Fluval Stratum, and then I think I'm going to put some play sand. This is just a little plastic baggie of play sand that I borrowed. My mom gave it to me. For this little project. So I think I'm going to put Fluval Stratum on the bottom and then a layer of sand and then a few little gravel pebbles on top. So I'm going to start off by rinsing this sand really thoroughly, and yeah. So I have a thin layer of the Fluval Stratum in this jar. This is the jar I'm actually going to be using as my micro Jarrarium. And then in this jar I just rinse this sand several times, first with water straight out of my tap and then with some dechlorinated water a few times. There are no animals going into this jar, at least not right away, but I still, I don't want any chlorine to harm the plants when I put them in. So today is my tank maintenance day. It's one of my feeding days as well. So I'm doing a water change. As you can see, the water level's low. I took out around 20-25% of the water, put a little bit back in, but I left the water level a bit low so that I could scrape some algae off the side with a soft bristle toothbrush. I'm only scraping off the front and this side. I'm leaving the back and the other side, I'm leaving the algae grow there for the snails. But I like the sides that I most often view the tank through to be relatively algae-free. And the shrimp are eating. Like I said, I feed them every third day. That might be a little out of focus, but I feed them in this little strainer. They got some Hikari shrimp cuisine pellets and a piece of blanched zucchini, so they seem to like those. Anyway, while the water level was low, it was easier to take some plant clippings. So my Java fern was already putting out these little babies here. There's one here and one here. So I just gently pulled those off, and they came off pretty cleanly. They got leaves and roots, so those are baby plants ready to go. And then you can see these pieces of the scarlet temple plant. And I clipped off parts where I could see, I'm pretty sure those thin little threads are roots, so I clipped off parts where the roots are actually growing so that it'll already, it looks like that part is ready to propagate. So I just took two little clippings, obviously left most of my plants intact. I don't want to reduce the amount of plants in the tank too much. They're good for, oxygenating the water and detoxifying ammonia and nitrates and stuff, so I don't want to take a bunch of plant matter out of the tank at once. But this should be plenty for my little jar. 2 little pieces of Java fern and 2 little pieces of scarlet temple. And here I have the sand on top of the Fluval Stratum with just a tiny bit of water in there. I'm gonna go break off a little piece of dragonstone and rinse that off. And yeah, I think that for hardscape in here, I'm just gonna have one very small piece of dragonstone, probably a little piece of driftwood, and a few pebbles from the aquarium. But it's not much space to work with, and obviously I need most of that space to be for water and the plants themselves. So I just want a few tiny little bits of hardscape in there, but I don't want to take up too much space. So I should have put a little bit more pre-planning into this, but first time doing this, you learn as you go. I pinned down the pieces of Java fern with rocks. So this one just has some gravel pebbles on top of the roots. And the other one, which is harder to see, it had really long roots, so I just put its roots, I kind of wrapped them around this little piece of dragon stone. And so the stones are holding down those plants. And then these sticks, I cut little notches in the end of the sticks and put the scarlet temple, the bottoms of the scarlet temple plants into those little notches so that the sticks can hold them into the substrate until they get their roots established. But as you can see, I soaked the driftwood briefly, but not for nearly long enough to make it waterlogged. So this one keeps floating back up. So I'm not going to fill the jar any more than this right now. Over time, this will get waterlogged. Until then, you know, the plant is still in the water, so hopefully it'll be okay. Once the stick is more waterlogged, I will position it better so that that end is down into the substrate a little bit, getting the bottom of the plant into the substrate. But for now, I guess I'm just going to leave it floating. Even though I did rinse the sand quite a few times, the water's still hazy, but as long as I leave it sit still, I think that should settle out of the water, hopefully in a day or so. I don't know how long it'll take, but I'll just make sure that the plants are getting lots of light, and we'll see how this goes over the next few days. Hopefully by the end of the week this will look better. Hopefully I'll have the wood waterlogged enough and have this full of clear water. I might put some tiny little floaters. I have some little pieces of azolla water fern that I might put on top. They're currently in a jar with a piece of lucky bamboo. Yeah, we'll see how this goes. So, the lighting's not the best in this room, but this is my little jar aquarium at the end of day one. I went on YouTube and I saw, let me see. Okay, so I ended up going online and searching for a way to make the driftwood sink faster, and I found a video called Updated, How to Sink Floating Driftwood in Aquarium Fast by the channel Aquafinity, and they recommended boiling the driftwood, so I boiled it for a while and that did the trick. It waterlogged the wood, and now the wood is pinning down the ends of the pieces of Scarlet Temple. The water is still hazy, you know, maybe I should have washed the sand more. I did rinse it quite a few times, but over the next day or so, hopefully that sediment in the water column will settle, and all of the plants are pinned down well, so yeah, hopefully this will take off, and I'll update, I mean, within this video, you know what I mean, you'll see more clips as the video goes on of how this progresses. Okay, so I think this is going to be the end of this video about this little Jarrarium project. I took a cutting from my money tree here, and I'm going to try to propagate that cutting in the water. It's been in here for a few days. This is a very small cutting that I didn't really get part of the stem, so this might not actually work. There is this little dead spot on this leaf here, so we'll see. It's been like this for a few days. I did put a bladder snail in here for a few days, but then I decided to rehome that bladder snail into this other Jarrarium, which I will talk about in a future video, I think. This one is still kind of a work in progress, but it's mostly done. But yeah, to finish the video about this this little Jarrarium, so we have the Scarlet Temples seem to be doing okay. The Java ferns seem to be doing okay, and we'll see what happens with this money tree cutting. Yeah, the snail seemed happy enough in there, but I thought that, you know, animals, even small, simple animals, I thought they should have a bigger bit of water. I thought that would be, you know, provide more. It's easier to keep a larger body of water stable, and it'll fill up with ammonia less quickly from their waste. But anyway, yeah, we'll see how this goes over time, but that's going to conclude this video. And just before I go, I forgot to mention that this is where I'm keeping it most of the time now. I'm going to see how it does up here with some other potted plants. I know that there's a couple of dead leaves on that pilia, but yeah, I don't know. It's obviously very cold outside, so it's nice having a little bit of tropical greenery inside.